I'm James Holder. Welcome to Full Court Football 24. With me, I've got former Norwich City, Bournemouth, Bristol Rovers, Reading, Wilson Icozon, Queen's Park Rangers, Swindon Town, Colchester United, Norwich City, Barnsley, Shrewsbury Town, Exeter City, Leyton Orient, Exeter City, Cheltenham Town, Dagenham, Redbridge, Star, Jamie Cureton. How are you?
I'm all right. Not too bad. Quite a long list.
Some teams in there, lad.
Yeah, it's a long list. I suppose looking at it, I probably wouldn't have liked it as long as it was. I'd have probably liked it a bit shorter and stayed at clubs a bit longer. But just how it's gone, and just moved around a bit and played for a few teams. But really enjoyed it. They've all been decent clubs for me.
Interestingly enough, you're one of 26 players who's played over 1,000 league games. That's an interesting statistic and something to be very proud of.
Yeah, it's something I'd never thought I'd do, to be honest. I suppose growing up playing 35 was probably normally cut-off point. Everyone thought that was about it. Take your pension and you're out. I've just managed to keep playing through enjoyment. Obviously, luck, not being injured, my body being able to carry on doing it. So yeah, I've thankfully kept playing. Still going at the moment. Still very much enjoying it, and 1,000 games comes up along the way. So yeah, really proud.
Fantastic achievement. I'd like to look back on the start of this journey today. I'd like to look a little bit about your upbringing, your growing up, a little bit about your childhood before you started really kicking on with the football. So where did we begin, Joe? Start us off.
I grew up in Bristol on a council estate in Eastville. So real good upbringing, I have to say. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Didn't enjoy school. Wasn't great at school. So I spent most of my time outdoors playing, basically. My dad used to run around the estate looking for me. I was always playing football or always around friends. It was a close-knit sort of estate, so all the kids went out and we just played all day, basically, and all night. And that was where I sort of picked up football and used to play between the garages as you do, and on the streets. There was a school at the top of the road, so we'd go in there, school field, get chased off a lot of places, get shouted at for kicking against walls and garages, and that was where I sort of picked up the art of playing football and just enjoying playing sport, I suppose, in general. It's a fairly rough area now. It wasn't probably as rough as it was, but it taught me a lot, I suppose, growing up. I was a bit of a wayward kid, so I would be running out of doors and when I shouldn't be, and coming in late, and my dad would be coming to the top of the street, dragging me down to get in. So yeah, I wasn't a nasty kid, but just a bit wayward and just liked to be out and enjoying life, I suppose. And same with school, really. I didn't enjoy it. Didn't sit exams. Just played sport. And then I suppose I got into little bits of trouble, bunking off and skiving and doing what I suppose a lot of kids do. And I wasn't really a great kid from probably 12 to 15. I was a bit of a wayward one, clubbing and doing bits and bobs, but still playing football along the way. So yeah, enjoyable childhood though, I have to say. Very enjoyable.
So what age would you have started playing football competitively at a reasonably good level? So I'm guessing you would have played all through your schooling age, you would have played for your schooling.
Yeah.
Did you play for your district or your county team? Was that something that you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, I played for both. I started playing at 10 properly for a team locally. Got picked up by Southampton at 11. And then I was playing for Bristol Boys and Avon and playing my Sunday football. So sort of from 10, and then I think it was probably a year later I got picked up to sort of go and train at Southampton, and then my district and county sort of went on from there. So yeah, probably 11 was where I realised I was good. I mean, from 10, I've got a statistic from a paper that I played half a season and scored 25 goals, and that was at the age of 10. So I suppose there was something natural in there. And then, yeah, I just sort of went on from there. But the middle period of sort of 13 to 15, when I was playing districts and county, that was where I sort of got a bit wayward, because I like to go out, I like to enjoy doing stuff with my friends. And when you end up playing for all these different teams, your days, your evenings are gone. So you'd finish school on a Monday, I had to go and train with Bristol. Then there was other stuff. Then your weekends were gone, so I was going to Southampton. So I got to a point where I sort of then deviated a little bit, and I'd miss training every now and then, and do something else. My dad called me once in a under-18s nightclub on a Monday. He went to pick me up from Bristol Boys training, and I wasn't there. I'd gone straight to the sort of out, because the timing sort of, it was normally 7 o'clock training, and club opened at 7 until 12, I think it was, under-18s one. And I used to do that, and I remember him standing at the doorway of the club and sort of dragged me out, and they basically just said, look, if you want to do this, you have to go sort of fully into it. So I went through a little period and then sort of got a little bit back on track. But yeah, I would say from 12 to 15 was my main sort of years as a kid getting into football.
How did that then develop to joining the Norwich City Academy and the team and coming through that system? Because it seems like quite an interesting journey from being that wayward 15-year-old to then knuckling down and making that trying to make that transition into professional football.
I suppose throughout those years, there's a lot of clubs obviously watch you, and you go on trial and train places. I was at Southampton but wasn't signed, and then Norwich basically offered me a trial, so I went up there. I think on an Easter, I'd have been about maybe 13 or 14. Played in 2 games and scored 9 goals, and that was sort of it. They wanted me to stay, so I basically sort of joined them in a way. I didn't sign anything, but just stayed with them right the way through. Had other offers sort of as I get into apprenticeship years to sign and sort of commit yourself. And I was happy. I mean, I nearly left school a year early because of what was going on and me not being great at school. Norwich offered me the chance to basically go up there at 14, do my last year at school there. But it was on a basis that I'd do half school and train. So I'd basically go and train with the youth team at 14 and do half schooling, but I'd be sort of homeschooled, I suppose. So it would give me an extra year of getting into the system. And I basically nearly left. I held a leaving party and everything at 14, and then I pulled out of it. I was a bit nervous, I suppose, and leaving home so early. So I basically waited the year and then moved up there at 15 when I left school, started my apprenticeship.
Talk to me about that period, that initial period of starting your apprenticeship. No doubt you'd have had to clean boots for the senior players in days. Interesting.
Yeah, it was. I was still a bit of a, not wayward, but a bit cheeky. Still, very full of myself as a kid. So we went up there as an apprentice. So yeah, I was given 3 players. So I had Robert Fleck, Darren Beckford, and Rob Newman. And you basically were at their beck and call. So it isn't like it is now. It was an apprenticeship where whatever they wanted, whatever they needed, you did. And if that meant training was starting for your youth team, but you had to do something, you had to do it. Youth team manager obviously would accept it. So we had a bakery down the road from the training ground, and I used to get sent down there for sausage rolls, hot dogs in the morning. You normally stood at the door for a cup of tea for Robert Fleck. He'd then send you down. If it was someone's birthday in the first team and then cakes had to be brought in, if it was one of your players, you'd be sent down and bringing back 40 cakes for everyone. Boots had to be clean, not wet. That was a big thing because you'd soak them to clean them, and you had to make sure by the morning they were dry. All their kit had to be put out, and then literally you did whatever they wanted until they'd done with you, and then you went and trained, and they did come back in after training, and you tidy everything back up. So it was a big learning curve, I suppose. And I was always a bit I always challenged sort of authority as with my parents, with teachers. So I sort of did the same going into this environment, and you sort of soon learned that you weren't bigger than anyone there, and players would come down on you. Management punishments were a lot harsher than, I suppose at school you get sent out of the class, which was for me perfect because I didn't want to be in there. But there it was, you'd be sort of ran, you would do more jobs, you would stay behind later. So it was stuff where they took stuff away from you more. So you soon learn. But I thought it was a good environment, and sort of makes you become a bit of a man, I suppose. So the 2 years I had as an apprentice, I think I was on £27 and then 35. So you got given a free bus pass, which helped. But it was good. You lived in digs, so you lived with a family, and it was just a way of growing up. And I suppose I was like 250 miles away from home, and you had to grow up quite quick and sort of understand what environment you were in, and what you had to do, and what it took to basically get into the first team.
Academies are a lot different from the days of your era to
yes.
nowadays, and the way the players are treated and stuff. Was there a lot of initiations from the senior players back then and stuff that wouldn't really go on nowadays, but stuff that happened back then?
Yeah, I suppose it wasn't loads. The main one we did was a Christmas one. You had to go into the change rooms and sing for your Christmas tip, and basically you had to walk in, I think, in your slips, so near enough naked, stand on a bench, and they would all be in the change rooms with eggs, flour, boot polish, and anything, and you had to go in and sing a song. And if you're if they liked it, then you got your Christmas bonus. If they didn't, and basically if they did or didn't like it, you got covered in egg, flour, oil, boot polish being rubbed everywhere. So I suppose as an initiation, it was something for you to, a bit of fun for them. You had to go, and I suppose for you, it was trying to get a bit of confidence in yourself, being in a first team dressing room and whatnot. And then at the end of it, you know, however many players you had, if you've been good throughout the year, would give you a tip, you know, for Christmas, which when you're on £32 or 27 and your pro gives you 50 quid, you know, you've got 3 of them, it's not bad, you know. So yeah, there was stuff like that. I think it was more, I found it more when I broke into the squad as a kid that I had to tag along with what they did, and they were quite big drinkers and went out a lot. So I was 17 and sort of in and around the first team. So you then go with that, even though you might not want to, because you feel that if you don't, you'll get looked at a bit, you know, wrongly. He's not buying into what we're doing. So I found I got dragged into sort of a drinking culture, I suppose, and a going out culture, and work hard, play hard type of thing. And obviously nowadays you don't get any of that. But growing up, you wanted to be part of the team, and we wanted, I suppose. So you ended up doing stuff, you know, because it got you involved, and you know, people liked you, I suppose, and enjoyed you in the group.
I don't think it was just Norwich City that would have had a huge drinking culture at that time. I think
No.
The British game in general, things were a lot different then, from the players' diet, the things that they would consume after training and stuff. Being in around the first team as a youngster, playing no doubt a lot of reserve football, a lot of man's football. Talk to me about that period and how you handled that.
I really enjoyed it. I was used to always playing up sort of ages. When I was 15, I played in the youth team for Norwich, so that had been under 18s. And then when I went into as an apprentice at 16, I was basically playing in the reserve, because I'd started and done so well in the youth team. I was, you know, if there was a reserve team spot to come up, I would be in it. So even at 16, I was playing in men's football. And at that level, you had the reserve team. So, you know, if you played Arsenal and Martin Keown and Tony Adams were injured and coming back, they would play. So you would play in the first team environment. So it wasn't like a reserve team where it's under 21s. We're talking superstars were playing in it because teams had big squads, or like I say, there was injuries. So that was your way of getting fit and then going back into the first team. So I found it okay. I mean, my record at youth and reserves is nearly a goal a game. I've got 82 and 84 games, and I found it not easy, but I found it comfortable, you know, and felt fine. So I always felt that stepping into men's football I could cope with, but I didn't realise the difference in the level of when you did, because then you're playing against top internationals, and a team of them, there's 40,000 fans, there's the pressure of 3 points, win bonuses, jobs on the line. And it wasn't until I got into the environment and you realise then the pressure that does start to come with that. You know, it's their lives then. You know, I knew a lot of them from being out and joking with them. Once you step into the work environment of on a match day, you've seen a different side. And that was probably the one thing I wasn't prepared for. I still was jovial, laugh, joke, even when I was first going in, because I was young. And it was then trying to separate, no, this is now, you know, a different environment. This is work. This is what we do. And, you know, the rest of it, if we do this right, then we can enjoy the rest of the week. So, yeah, as a kid, that was difficult to sort of switch on and off. And that was the one thing I noticed the big difference is going into a first team when there was a game. There was a huge difference.
Who would have been the big characters in that team and in that dressing room at the time? Who would have been like the commanding figures, the players that commanded the respect from the rest of the team?
I mean, we had a few. I mean, when I was first signed, Tim Sherwood would probably have been one of them. and then he moved on. Then when I sort of was stepping in, you had Will Fox, Chris Sutton, Brian Gunn was a big figure, Mark Bowen, Ian Crook. I mean, it was a team full of sort of senior players. It wasn't like a lot of young players within the dressing room. My mate Darren Eady broke in, and then I sort of come behind. So he was the youngster, really. But yeah, majority of them were known stars. Jeremy Goss, Dave Phillips, Welsh international. So I suppose Sutty, Will Fox and Lee Power were the main three that were the jokers and the ones who messed around. I tended to sort of gravitate to them. So they were a bit younger anyway. And they were fun. They were my sort of type of people. So you gravitate to them, and you know, I got on really well with them. And the more senior ones were probably Ian Butterworth, Gunny, who were the more sort of older figures, I suppose. But yeah, it was a good dressing room. You know, they worked hard and played hard, from, like I say, from what I saw. But they were a real good group, and I think they were underestimated as the actual sort of the players they had. They had some top players, and Sutty Foxy went on and played for Newcastle's Blackburn. You know, they were good players. But I think what I didn't realise, they had sort of got on their journey of their careers already and steady. I hadn't started mine, and I was still doing the stuff they were, but they had sort of got going. And I think that was my problem, is I probably needed to get my career going before I enjoyed the other side of it, where I was enjoying the other side without really having a name, I suppose. And I think that was a big problem, especially in my early years as a kid, sort of breaking in, is I hadn't established myself, but I was enjoying the life that everyone else was enjoying, and I probably didn't deserve it because I hadn't achieved anything at that point. And that was sort of followed me for a few years, I think, until I got going and realised what sort of job I was in, what I really wanted out of football. I think early on I just felt me being a good player, me having ability is going to be fine, and I'll just enjoy my life and my career will just carry on. And you soon realise that, you know, you have to put a lot more into it to get stuff out. It's not just, you know, you were a good kid, you know, one of the best around as a youth team or whatever. When you step into a first team, it's different. And I don't think I sacrificed enough early on to sort of reap the rewards I should have got. And I was trying to reap the rewards without actually doing anything, really.
Can you talk us a little bit about the routine of the side and, like you said, the structure and how it would work from training to night out to recoup to training to night out, etc.?
With me personally, I just would sort of train and then go out, I suppose, and just go into a routine. I was young and fit, and it didn't seem to affect me. So weekends was probably every Saturday, whether I was in the first team squad or not, would go out. And the first team were quite similar. Even on away trips I was on, there'd be drinks on the way home. You'd stop off, go into town, all in your suits. Sunday off. Monday you would see the first team, which is one thing I learned a lot. They'd have bin bags on if there was you're getting weighed. They'd be running in the showers to lose the weight. But then they train, and they would train as hard as possible. And then Mondays wasn't too bad. Probably Tuesdays you had a Wednesday off, so you train hard. Tuesday you'd be out. You'd go to the pub straight after training, and you'd be out all night. Wednesday off, and then Thursday they'd come in and they'd work their socks off again. I think I didn't have the work ethic, so I would enjoy all the life, and I probably wasn't the one who would come in and then work myself anyway. So I would sort of still, you know, labour through training, but be okay football-wise, score goals, and I would think that's okay, and I would sort of labour through, where they would come in, work the socks off, and then go and drink as much as possible. And they obviously were used to doing it, and I wasn't. So I still just treated it as, you know, I'm enjoying my life going out, and I'm coming in, playing in games, still scoring goals. You know, nothing's affecting, so I would just sort of carry on. But yeah, that was sort of, you know, until I left Norwich and even a bit of Bristol Rovers, that was just the sort of the life. It was very much you come in, you play, and you go out, and you're a team. And it wasn't like it was ones and twos. You know, you were double figures most times. There was either a day out or a night out. It was everyone went, you know, and that was it. And then you'd come in on a training day, and everyone would train hard and talk about what happened the night before, or if it was a Saturday, Sunday off and stuff. But yeah, I'm, you know, thinking back, was in most days, really, you know, in the daytime, you'd be sat in a pub somewhere, you know, most of the time, you know, and that was just the life. And I think the whole football world did it. So there was never anyone who had an advantage because you've all done it. You know, you hear the stories of all these other teams. So that was sort of what the early 90s of football was. And, you know, I was breaking in. You know, I wasn't going to be the one to go, well, I'm not going out. You know, and so you didn't want that because you turn up on a training day and you'd be the only one to go out. So, you know, I didn't need much encouragement, if I was being honest. So I, you know, went along with it. But that was the life, you know, and everyone done it. I think my only thing was I didn't work hard enough when I was in. I still laboured around and got away with it, I suppose. But eventually, it obviously does catch you up.
Is it true that Manchester United tried to sign you as a youngster and you turned them down to stay with Norwich City?
Yes. Yeah. It was, again, I'd been at Norwich for, I don't know if it was 6 months or just training and going up there when I couldn't play with them. And I was obviously playing for everyone else around, counties and Bristol and stuff, and doing very well. And, you know, my name was getting thrown around, you know, a lot. And I got offered a trial to go there. So I went there for a week. It would again been an Easter or summer holiday, went up there, played, trained, done very well. Come away, and when it got to the apprenticeship, sort of when people were offering you, Norwich offered me a 2-year apprenticeship and a 2-year pro. So I was like over the moon, and Man United offered me the same. And I sort of had to make a decision, I suppose, of, you know, where I felt my future was best. Whether I made, I don't know, at 15, if I was thinking that way, or I just got scared and I was happy where I was. So I just said, I'm going to sign for Norwich, which I'm a Man United fan. So it's a bit of a strange one, really. Yeah, again, I mean, it's so long ago. Me sitting there, I can't even really truly explain why I turned him down. I think my main reason, I think in my head, is I've been at Norwich for longer, felt comfortable. I felt I had a real good chance of playing in their first team, if I was honest, because they weren't a money team. They were a team that was finishing in the top 3 in the Premier League, so they were, you know, weren't a crack team. And I felt Man United, was I good enough? Was I going to break in? They were at the time, hadn't won a lot, spending a lot of money, trying to build a team. And I decided Norwich. And obviously, for me, it was the best year of youth products that they brought through, which I'd have been part of. It makes you chuckle.
When you think of the success that the class of 92 had, and that team, and like a lot of the players in that squad that didn't make it as well, like the likes of Ben Thornley, who was
I think Robbie Savage was in it.
Savage.
I mean, I look at it. Of course, now I look and think, you know, the squad of players that they had, you know, I would have definitely added to it at that age, because they didn't have a centre forward in the whole group, and I was, you know, hotly tipped one of the best around, I suppose, at that age.
Wow.
And then you see what they've all done, and I suppose, like you say, even the ones who didn't have huge Man United careers have all gone on to have really good careers, because I suppose the upbringing, you're surrounded by unbelievable players which should make you better normally. And the one thing I look at is how I was as a child. The one thing I needed was Sir Alex Ferguson. When I hear the stories of what he'd done to sort of your Giggs, your Lee Sharps, where he would come to their house, you know, because they were, you know, I would have been, because I know what I was like. If I was there, I'd have been out with Lee Sharp, I'd have been out with Giggs, because that would have been me. But it looks like that when he was there, he basically had a ruling with them, and they respected him so much that they ended up not stopped doing it, but I think they knew when they should and shouldn't. And I think probably at Norwich, I didn't have the figure that I would have listened to and maybe sort of pushed me in a different direction. Because I was so far away from home, I had no family. They were all in Bristol. And I suppose, like I said, having maybe people at Norwich say bits and bobs, I was like, yeah. So I suppose for me, that's the one thing that I think by going there, I think that would have had a bigger effect, him, of what he was like with his young players. And you would look at Beckham, you know, he guided them all into decent young men as well as good players. And there wasn't many that out of that age group that went wayward. You know, they all seemed to be quite sort of strong-minded and went on to have good careers. So I think that would have been the biggest thing, being around those players, but having him as your manager. And I think if he felt that you had a future at the club, then he would have done everything possible to make sure you did. So yeah, that's the disappointment for me. I mean, I broke in, played for Norwich, and started my career. But I suppose if you could go back, I definitely would go, okay, well, what if I went this way now rather than that way? Where would I have ended up, and what sort of career? Because it would have been completely different.
Did you have much interactions with Alex Ferguson yourself? Did you speak to him during your trial?
I remember in the trial we went out for dinner. We went out for dinner. I remember in the trial, and I remember him sitting at the table and speaking. And then I remember a player having to get up and sing. So again, he was doing stuff, I think, to bring stuff out in you. And that was back then, and I'd have, like I said, only been 14. So yeah, I remember that. He rang my house when I turned him down. So when I told the scout I wasn't coming, he obviously told Sir Alex Ferguson. And on one evening, the phone rang. My dad picked it up, and he went, Sir Alex Ferguson on the phone, and he was basically saying, why has he turned us down? Why doesn't he want to come? And asking, because I suppose back then not many 14, 15-year-olds turned down Man United if they, I was getting offered a pro deal with Man United. It was potentially a 4-year contract. I had 2 years as an apprentice and 2 years as a pro, and I was saying no to them, which I suppose back then was unheard of. So he rang up and just spoke to my dad and asked the questions of what could he change his mind? Was there anything we could do? And I'm sat in the living room going, oh my God, what am I doing? And I just sort of said, look, I've made my decision. So my dad, just told him and said, look, he's happy there, and that's it. So yeah, again, he obviously wanted me quite a lot for him to ring up, I suppose. And yeah, I'd obviously I made my mind up really, and I think if I hadn't been at Norwich for so long and I'd just gone on trial at both, I would have signed for Man United. But it just felt at the time, I felt comfortable at Norwich.
Talk me through that initial impact and initial moment making your debut for Norwich City, being named in the squad for the first time. I'm guessing this was a big deal for yourself, seeing all your hard work come to fruition. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah. I mean, the first time I was named in the squad and on the bench was Inter Milan. So the squad had gone to Inter Milan for the Champions League game, and I'm a young birthday, so the youth team had a FA Youth Cup game on the day before, so I played in it, and I used to play for them to help them anyway, and we played Coventry away. I think we won and I scored, and then basically in the changing rooms, my youth team manager said, "You're flying out to Italy tomorrow with the fans," and I just assumed I was going out just to meet the squad and just basically be part of it. And then I didn't realise one of the players had been taken down ill. So when I got to the hotel, they'd all been there a few days, and he named the squad, and I was sub. So the first ever time was a bit of a shock because I had no preparation for it, and it was just I'm sub. It's Inter Milan away in the San Siro, and just sort of enjoyed it. I mean, I'd played the night before, so I didn't expect to play. I think it was someone had got ill, so they put me on it. I think for the hard work I was doing at the time, but the feeling was unbelievable. If I'd have made my debut, and come on as a sub there, it would have been a nice place to make a debut. But just to sit in the stand, just sit on the bench, warm up on the pitch, be involved in the first team. I mean, they had, I think, Dennis Bergkamp scored. I think they had Zamorano. I mean, they had like top players. So you look around San Siro, it was unbelievable. And then that was it. I then didn't get back involved. Well, I was involved when we played Bayern Munich, but I was 16th man, so I didn't get changed. And then I didn't get involved properly until the following season. So I should have really made my debut at 18 that season. But again, we had a good team and the team were flying. But I would imagine it was more my off-the-field antics rather than on-the-field antics, which put managers off a bit. So I would have still been living the dream, I suppose, out. I'd have had a flat by then on my own and just, been doing what I want, really. And then turning up, playing, scoring and going, look, I'm still good player, but you know, as a kid, you don't think what other managers want, what they see. They don't want to trust people. They want reliability. They don't just want someone, you know, like myself, Flash Harry comes in, scores a goal, you know, but then he's out, you know. So I didn't really see that. So I didn't then get back involved till the following year, and I made my debut against Everton. So I'd have been sub a few times and not come on. And then I remember coming on against Everton at home. We drew 0-0. But the feeling to finally get on, it's sort of, you know, I suppose the hard work you've put in, you just feel it's all worth it at that point, really, that someone's gone, you know, here you go, you've worked hard enough now, and you start to think you're doing the right things for someone to give you a chance. So I was given that chance. And then from then till near enough the end of that season, I was in and out, starting, playing. And yeah, that was sort of the start of, I suppose, my career, really.
You seem to have a huge affiliation with the Norwich City fans. I know dyeing your hair in club colours before the Derby game probably has got you iconic status with them. Can we talk through that period and everything that was going on around the club at that time?
I mean, I suppose you get liked by the fans so much because you come through the system. So I was there at 15 and I ended up knowing everyone in Norwich, so to speak. I was out a lot. I mingled with the fans. You know, I'd be in the pub drinking with the hooligans and stuff. You know, that was sort of me. I didn't want to be, I suppose when I first broke in, I didn't want to be someone that put themselves up on a pedestal and was better than everyone. But in my head, I always wanted to be normal. And again, stupidly, you realise that if you're a Premier League footballer, you know, you're not normal and you can't really do the things that you want to do. No matter how down to earth you want to be, you can. And back then you could be, so I was, and I would mingle with everyone. So I suppose if I did well in a game, I'd be out drinking with the fans, the hardcore loonies. So I suppose that was where you get that sort of reputation of the club liking you. The green hair stuff was just, again, just me. I didn't even really think about it, if I'm being honest. A lot of the lads had skinheads a few weeks before for some reason. And then we were going down to Ipswich. Darren Eady hadn't cut his hair. So we're like, you know, what are you going to do? And he said, I'll just dye it green. The boys were like, oh, brilliant. We get to the ground and he basically just bottled out of it. And I was like, yeah, I'll put it on me, no problem. I literally didn't think a thing, and walked out Portman Road, and again, I didn't even realise how bright it was. And I walked out, and the whole place obviously just went bonkers. When you walk out Portman Road, you're in the corner, so you're just surrounded by Ipswich fans. They'd gone mental. Norwich fans were going crazy. And I'd obviously, the year before, scored against them in my first derby. So, you know, they don't like you as it is, and then you're suddenly going to wear green in their home patch. So to the fans, I suppose they must think, well, you're either crazy or whatever. I don't know, because what player dyes their hair green or whatever colour in a derby, especially away from home. So I think they just appreciate that. You know, I love the club. I enjoy playing for it. And, you know, I was someone, I suppose, that could do most things back then. It didn't faze me at all. And that was it. We lost the game, which was unfortunate. I did score, which obviously didn't go down well with the Ipswich fans. And yeah, that was it, I suppose. So it's always been a big talking point. You know, so I suppose, you know, nowadays people dye their hair all different colours, but back then, to suddenly walk on a pitch of green hair wasn't really the dumb thing.
Fantastic experience you've had at Norwich up to this point. Are you now sort of an established pro at the club and sort of in the mix, in the main pecking order of the manager's thinking?
You would think I was, but I wasn't, again. And I think because of, I suppose, just how I was, you know, I wasn't the most professional, still enjoyed it. You know, I ended up enjoying the lifestyle rather than the game at the point. Don't get me wrong, I loved playing, enjoyed every minute of it. But I was doing so much outside of playing, just, you know, partying, going out, you know, so many wrong decisions, I suppose. So even though I'd been there, made my debut at 19, I've been there since 15, I still wasn't an established first team player, which was, for me, now looking back, was crazy. I should have been maybe number one pick, playing all the time, and especially if we'd been relegated out of the Premier League. obviously your strikers have sort of left, Mark Robbins, Mike Sheeran. So yeah, all my other friends, Darren Eady was established, Andy Marshall the goalie, and Adi Akinbayi. So we come through the youth team. They were all more established than me, and I was sort of tipped to be the best out of the group anyway. I'd sort of gone backwards, and them guys had sort of moved forward. So no, even at that point, I was still, battling for my place, so to speak, and still trying to prove people wrong and whatnot. But while doing that, I was still being an idiot. So, I can now look back and see why, I didn't establish myself in that period, and then I had to leave because I wasn't playing, and I think I basically pushed my luck too many times. But yeah, it's a shame because if I'd have just been professional, done my job properly and lived the right way, then yeah, I would have probably been there a lot longer, and I've definitely played a lot more games for him. But yeah, I suppose just me as a kid learning what was going on and not really sort of changing my ways too fast, and still just thinking, my ability's fine, I can do what I want. I don't want to be different. I'm quite happy being, out with fans and still enjoying that, and didn't really sort of see what I was sort of giving up, and I was sacrificing my career at that time. So yeah, it's a shame, but no, I didn't. In my first period at Norwich, I wasn't an established first team player at all. And it's crazy, really, how I didn't get that. But it's only myself to blame.
Can you talk me through the news that Mike Walker was going to sell you to Bristol Rovers, and how that news was given to yourself, or how the whole situation came about?
We come back for pre-season, and he'd come back in as a manager. I'd done my usual stuff, and for 8 weeks did nothing. Been on holiday everywhere. Come back probably about stone overweight. So I was never enjoyed the running side of pre-season anyway. And then in pre-season, I was in not good shape. Some of the runs I was struggling really bad, and I think he'd made his mind up. I had a year to go. I mean, I was only 21, but I think he'd sort of made his mind up that I had all this potential, and was it ever going to come through? So I think they looked at me and thought, I'm not going to make it at that level. I'm not good enough, to play to Norwich. He's not willing to do the right stuff to basically become a Norwich City player. So I can't remember how long into the season it was. I got a phone call to say Bristol Rovers are coming for me on loan. And I was like, brilliant. I'll go and play football. I'm from Bristol. I can go back home, see my family. And then as I was going down, Ian Holloway told me that basically they'd agreed a fee, 250 grand. If I do well and they want to sign me, that's it. They can buy me. They can't change the price. And I was like, okay. I didn't think nothing of it. And I just went home, lived at my mum's, did a month playing. I think I scored 5 and 6, and they wanted to sign me. And then it was basically my decision. Norwich couldn't ask for any more money, and it was down to me. So I was in a funny situation because it was coming home, brilliant. I'm going to see all my family and my friends, and at the same time, it was I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands, and I'm in my city now. What am I going to be like? And I just thought, I want to come home. I'm not playing at Norwich. Come home. And really, again, I could have gone back to Norwich because I'd just gone and scored, like I say, every week playing for Rovers. Come back, get your head down, and get yourself in Norwich, or come back and see what else is about, because I'd obviously been let out, gone and scored. I suppose I just thought, it's Bristol, let's come home. So I did. And I think the first year was probably the 1 year where I went still a bit crazy. And then I think after that, I slowly started to sort of settle down and start to establish myself as a first team player. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse, because if I'd have carried on, especially coming home with all familiar surroundings, it might have been, a bad move. But I think in the end it worked out to be a really good move. I enjoyed nearly 5 years at the club, and like I say, I think I established my name as a decent sort of goal scorer at that point.
Was it difficult coming back to your old life, so to speak, with your old friends and people that you'd known and grown up with, where your status, your position, and even maybe your financial situation had changed for the better?
No, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I've got the same friends even now that I had then, so it wasn't too bad. I come back and they were good as gold, all my friends. You know, I had a real sort of close, sort of knit group. They weren't all school friends, a couple of school friends, and the majority of them are just from an area where we grew up, and you know, just accumulate friends. And like I say, they're still my friends now. Most of them have come to every birthday or whatever I've had. You know, they've travelled around the country watching football. So yeah, going back was probably too easy in a silly way, because I was come back and it was like I hadn't left. So in that respect, I found it fine. They all obviously knew what I'd done. They loved it. They were more protective of me than anyone else. So if we went out, they would be very protective of me if there were situations arising and stuff. So I think they understood what I'd done, what I'd got to, and they didn't want things to mess up. So it was probably a good thing going home, because they had more of my well-being sort of to them. They wanted to look after me, I suppose. So that was good. You know, and then I got to sort of establish, you know, friendships and relationships again, which I'd sort of obviously left for 5 years. Great coming home to see my mum every day. You know, she used to come to every home game in some away. And I think if I didn't play for Bristol Rovers, I don't think my mum or dad would have seen me play as much, because I played obviously all around the country. My mum doesn't drive. She'd separated from my dad when I was 11, so her and her partner would have to travel quite a way if I was playing somewhere else. So I think what it done, it gave my family and friends an opportunity to watch me play football, which I think was nice. You know, it wasn't why I chose to come home, but you know, in that period I was there. My mum come constantly, my dad did, my sister, and friends did. So you know, because when I left, they didn't come as much because, you know, work and travelling. So I think it give them a nice sort of chunk of my career, and it was nice for me that, you know, my family got to watch me for, you know, 4 to 5 years. So that was good. So the move overall for me worked out fine. It was good as gold.
How did you get on with Ian Holloway? How was he as a manager? What was his tactics like? Because we see a certain persona of him, particularly his post-match interviews. He looks brilliant. He looks like a great character. What was
He's
it
like that. He's like that constantly. So it's not just for show. I mean, I knew him a little bit when I was at Norwich. Our youth development officer knew him. So when we went home for sort of summer holidays, he got him to take me running. So from about 14, 15, I knew Ian anyway. Not greatly, but I knew him. So when I went down, we had a semi-relationship, and he was player manager. So I was playing in the same team as him, and he was a lunatic on the pitch, screaming and shouting, ran everywhere. He was the fittest man in the team, didn't want to lose. And yeah, team talks and stuff, he was pretty much the same. Banter, would say quotes from just anything. Tactically, he was good. He put together a really good team. I think it was my last year, we missed out. We lost in the playoff one year, and we missed out on the playoffs. But he played 3-5-2, which then, you know, that was sort of 98, you know, unheard of. So tactically he was good. He got good teams together. It was fun to be around. Don't get me wrong, he could lose his head and go crazy at the smallest things, and you'd be looking, you know, he'd go on and on about stuff. Couldn't let stuff go. But he was fun. You know, you walked in the change rooms and in the training ground every morning, and he was bubbling, hardly ever down. He was good. Really enjoyed working for him. I worked for him again at QPR. I still speak to him. You know, he's a close friend, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, and he loved Bristol Rovers. He was a fan. He was a nut. I mean, I lived 10 minutes from the ground when I grew up as a kid, so he ended up having a lot of Australians in the team. And it was good fun, and he was good. It was good to be a part of. It's just a shame that we come close on a couple of occasions of achieving something and just missed out. But he's what he is, and I'm sort of saying this is. I think I went there in '96. You know, he's like he is now. Then, you know, he'll always do different things. He'll always be thinking of motivational stuff. You know, he's always trying to challenge you. I think he's just done the same. And you know, when you hear him on the radio or see him on the telly, you know, I chuckle because I've known that same person, for 20 odd years now. And yeah, he's a top man, and he's got a great heart and cares. And, he's had a great career. He's done very well as a manager. And yeah, it was enjoyable. After there was some fun stuff that went on.
Any stories in particular you can share involving yourself and Ian Holloway, or any moments or anything you think would be good for us to hear?
God, I suppose there's a few. We used to do a run. So there's this one we used to do a pre-season. We used to run on a cycle track. So we had to run from Bristol to Bath. And I remember he used to give us a certain time to go, and he'd wait. This is how fit he was. And you ended up running so far, touching the wall, and then having to come back. And I remember we were halfway through, sort of getting close to the end. And all of a sudden you can sort of hear he's coming. So you didn't want him to catch you. And at this point, there's a group of us running, and then Frankie Bennett, who was our quick winger, just collapsed on the floor, like literally collapsed out. So we're all sort of going around him, and Ollie comes sprinting up, and we're all panicking, and he's sort of going, tell my wife and kids that I love them. You think like he's going to die and stuff. And like really going for it. And Ollie, like, it was basically probably from the panic of Ollie catching him. And the ambulance ends up coming down. And he's like just dehydrated and stuff. So, Frankie got caned for the rest of the season, like he was going to die of dehydration. And that again could just come from Ollie. Like, I think the sheer panic of Ollie trying to catch players, and I think he gave us about 15 minutes head start as well, and he still caught us. Then we had one when we went to Blackpool and played. We used to play on a bank holiday there because Rovers would bring about 4,000 fans. And we got there early on the Friday, or a Saturday, sorry, and we played on the Sunday. And he let us all go to Pleasure World, walked down the strip to sort of Pleasure World in Blackpool. And I just remember coming back, and there's thousands of Bristol Rovers fans, and we've got a game tomorrow. And you've got players walking along with 4-foot cuddly toys on their shoulders and wandering around, where he'd give us that much free time. And I'm thinking like back at it now. I mean, I brought one home for my daughter at the time, where we're in a Pleasure, like in the fun fair with fans. We've got a game tomorrow. We're all on roller coasters and throwing knocking coconuts there. And that was Ollie. He was very relaxed, and I think he knew how to sort of do stuff. It was early in the day. We got back to the hotel early. We all had our team meetings and chilled, but that was his way of relaxing you, I think. And he knew it was, game's a big occasion. We're going to have big support. And I think it's sort of the fans bought into it all as well, that we were quite accessible, and he was good with that. But yeah, it was just always a thought I get walking back along the strip with boys with toys, massive giraffes and stuff, and you think we're playing football tomorrow. And I've actually got a picture of, I think, me, Jason Roberts on the roller coaster where they take the snap, and I've got the picture. We're in our Bristol Rovers gear and stuff, like flying down where we've had a snap, and we'd have played the next day. But that was him, and even now I think he still does similar sort of stuff where stuff you just don't expect. You do stuff at the right time as well when the pressure's on. He knows how to relax you. We played Gillingham in a cup game. It was a replay on an evening game. We got to the ground early. He took us to the pub, and we're playing that night. And he said, "You have what you want." So when you're like, "Shall I order an orange juice?" And we had quite a decent drinking culture. So boys are sat there having a beer. We end up after that walking back across. We beat him. And it was his way, I think, of he maybe would sense the situation, maybe sense how people are feeling, and think, boys might be tense and wound up tonight. I'll tell you what I do, go and have a pint. And we'd have that. That would have been 4 hours before kickoff. And we ended up going and winning, because I think he was just very good at reading people and reading situations. But yeah, there's, if you actually sit down and think about it, there's probably a story every week, I would imagine. But yeah, there's a few. But he was good. Friday we were working.
We've heard times that he's got it right. Is there any times where you thought he maybe got it wrong with his motivational speeches and stuff? Some of the stuff is off the cuff. Is there ever times where you've sort of looked at each other and looked at other players?
I mean, there's been a few, I suppose. There was one thing I thought he got wrong, which when we were sort of flying. We were top of the table with 10 games to go. And we won one game in 10 and finished outside the playoffs. And we were on 82 points before that. So I think the back end of that season, not saying it was his fault, we all played a part, form got dropped, and we lost players to injuries. And I've always just felt that, I don't know if it was his fault or he couldn't bring people in, but we lost 3 key players, and within that we brought in 3 loans for kids. And I just felt at the time, probably decisions were wrong. We should have replaced what we had if we wanted to achieve something. Now, I don't know if that was his decisions, the clubs, the boards, whoever, but that was one sort of time where I felt that he got it wrong, whether that's on his head or not. It probably isn't all him, and knowing the club, he probably didn't have any money to go and get anyone, and they said, he was like, look, we've got 10 games left for top of the table, I need to replace these players that we've lost, and they probably gone, well, you can go and get loans. But that was the time. Most of the other time, yeah, there's certain things he's done. I'm trying to think, but you maybe just think it was more maybe decisions to do with football side, rather than his team talks or taking us somewhere when we felt we shouldn't have gone. It's probably mainly just football decisions of maybe players, signings and just things like that. I think in the run-in we had, I don't think anyone could have done anything. I know he holds himself accountable for, I think Jason Roberts went on international with Grenada. We won, and then Jason come back and he put him straight in the team, and we lost. So again, there's decisions which all managers make, but I don't think there's anything as outrageous as he was when it worked. It wasn't anything overly outrageous he did, and it sort of really backfired. There was always stuff that went on, and you looked and thought, is he really speaking, or was he really going to do this? But most of the time, it did work, I have to say. But it was more in shock because we were so not used to it. He was my second manager, so I was used to Norwich and very strategic, and then all of a sudden I'm working for Ollie, and it's a lot of it's off the wall stuff, and it was quite refreshing, I suppose. It wasn't so regimented. But the one thing with him, he just demanded hard work. As long as you did that, most of the things he would sacrifice, but he demanded hard work and demanded dedication. And if he didn't get that, then he could lose his head. I've seen him go crazy at times. But yeah, in general, as long as you worked hard, because that was what he done. He worked his socks off and he grafted for his career. And if he felt you weren't doing that, then you had a problem.
You struck up quite a formidable partnership with Jason Roberts. A lot of goals, a lot of wins, a lot of good times, a lot of good memories. I want to look at that season where you guys just missed out on promotion, losing to Reading in the playoff final. Big year, big times for the club history. Can you pick me up and talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, me and Jace did really well, I have to say. He come in my second or third year. He got a move to Wolves, and it just didn't work out for him from non-league, and Ollie brought him in. At the time, we had Barry Hells, myself, and Jason. So Jason didn't really break in straight away, and then Barry left for Fulham. Jason come in, and we got put up front together, and just everything sort of went from there. I think the 2 years we played together, I think I got over 20 every year, and so did he. It just worked. The system around us, we had good players, but I suppose me and him, he was the big, muscly centre forward who, occupied defenders, could score goals out of nothing, run through people. And I played off of that, sort of, a bit elusive, picked up the bits around him. And I think we just complemented each other. We looked for each other whenever we had the ball, and got on very well off the pitch. And it just worked. Sometimes you strike up partnerships. I've had 2 or 3, and you can't overly explain why, but sometimes just the chemistry works, the team dynamics around it works, and we had a good team and we focused on that, and then me and Jace were at the top of it that got the goals. But we had good supply line behind us and good defenders, and I think it just all worked together. Me and Jason got most of the plaudits because he was scoring all the time. But as a team structure, Ollie had worked it well and had me and Jace at the top end of it. And yeah, it was fairly enjoyable, and like I say, our only downside was that, on a few occasions we just fell short. That was the biggest disappointment for the squad of players we had. We should have achieved something. We should have got promoted, out of League One in the sort of 4 years I was there. But for whatever reason, we fell short. And, I'd imagine that's probably Ollie's biggest sort of failing as well, that he couldn't get Rovers, a promotion. And when you look back at the players that all went on and moved everywhere and had careers they've had, we had a decent squad of players and, we just couldn't get it done. So, yeah, that was the biggest disappointment for me playing for Bristol is I didn't achieve anything overly with them.
One player I'd like to mention as well is the Duke, Nathan Ellington. We had the privilege of having Nathan on this week. He coincidentally made his debut coming on for you, which is an interesting statistic and fact in itself. A little bit about Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan was good. We signed him again from non-league. No one, I didn't know a lot about him. But Gary Penrice had watched him a lot, and he was our striker coach. When you sort of look at the forwards we had going through the building, it was frightening really. And Nathan come in, quiet, shy, a real good frame on him. For a young lad, you could see he was an athlete. I think he was high jump champion or something. He could jump like a gazelle. Shoulders just went out, and you seen him come in and you thought, he's got something. He had that raw ability, and he just needed to be sort of polished, I suppose. Brought, come into a system and work on every day, and he got better. Without a doubt, he was one of the players that progressed, got better and better the longer he was in the system. And like I say, he was a good lad. He wasn't an over sort of drinker, wasn't overly partying. He used to stay in, play his computer. I remember he used to go down his house a few times, play computer with him. So he was one of them, quite quiet. And I think he was just grateful that he was in the system. And then, I remember, I don't know if he did score when he came on his debut, I'm not sure. But I remember him sort of coming on and Ollie had him and we were just introducing him a lot all the time. And he's one of the players that when Jason went away in the season we collapsed, Nathan played, scored, and then he come back and left Nath out. And, I think with Nath, you could see he was, with the size he was, he could handle men's football comfortably. And whenever he stepped in, he didn't ever let anyone down. I thought he was a good player. I didn't get to play with him a lot because I moved on and he then established himself as the main striker at Rovers. So I played with him a few times, but whenever I did, I think I scored a hat-trick at Oxford. He scored away at Wick. I think we linked quite well because he was sort of, again, he was an athlete, won headers, held the ball up. And for me, it suited my game. But whether Ollie had as much trust in him early on as maybe he should have done, I'm not sure. But he was a top player, I have to say. And you then see the career he went on and had. He got a big move, played for Wigan, West Brom. It was no surprise. You could see from the moment he walked through the door that he had ability. And it was just a case of, right, you're now in every day, we can work on it. And he had a very good attitude and wanted to learn. And like I say, he did very well for Bristol Rovers and obviously got a deserved move from there.
One interesting point Nathan Ellington made was the conveyor belt of strikers that Bristol Rovers produce. Penrice, Gary Penrice.
Yeah, Gary Penrice, yeah.
Coaching he did with the strikers to keep on producing that level of quality player, churning them out. It seemed fantastic. Was he very helpful for yourself?
Yeah, really good. When I first signed, he wasn't there, and then Ollie brought him in as a player assistant, and he basically would take the strikers. So whenever Ollie was working on something that the strikers didn't really need to be involved in, he would take us. So me and Jason did probably most days of him, just doing finishing, technique work, and then him just talking to you. I don't think people realise I didn't realise how good a player he was until I met him properly. I knew about him from Bristol Rovers, but he was a top player, real good centre forward, both footed. He was my sort of size, but used his body well. So to learn off him and for him to coach you, it was brilliant. And he worked on us as a pair, worked on you individually. And at the time, you had Peter Beadle, Barry Giles, myself. Then Beads left, Jason come in, Nathan come in, Bobby Zamora. We had 6 centre forwards that all went on and played higher and played for longer internationals. When you look at Bristol Rovers and you think their 6 centre forwards are going to have come through their system, and majority of us come through young, and sort of establish ourselves at Bristol Rovers and move on, you'd be laughed at. But when you talk of the names that were there, apart from, I think Jason, Nath, Bobby, and Barry all went and played in the Premier League. I got to the Championship. Frightening, really. But yeah, Penny was the one I think who overly scouted. He didn't scout me, but I think he scouted Barry. I think he would have looked at Jason, Nathan. Bobby was released, I think, from West Ham and come to us in our youth team, so he come through the system. And then he just generally worked on you. And it just seemed at the time, even now, Rovers fans talk about it, we had an era of basically centre forwards, and it wasn't just average ones, good centre forwards coming through the building, scoring goals and then moving on. And then the problem you're always going to have is, at some point that's going to stop. And I think me and Jason left, Nath stayed, Bobby left. So Nath ended up sort of being the one carrying for a little while, and then he went. And then it took him, I think, till Lambert really to get another sort of established one through the building. So it took him a while. But yeah, to have 6 on your books coming through in that period was frightening. But we worked hard on it. Like I say, Penny worked his socks off, and Ollie basically built a team around 2 centre forwards, and we'd do our jobs and you two put the ball in the net. And that was how he built his teams early on.
As we mentioned, the next season, the promotion challenge tails off. You guys being first in the league, 10 games going, it doesn't happen. We then see relatively a lot of interest from yourself, mainly Reading interest. I'm sure there would be interest from other clubs as well. Can you talk us through that period and what went around your transfer?
Yeah, as the season ended, we obviously ended in failure and we were gutted, to be fair. So in the summer, I just had a little chat of what I felt I wanted to do. And I just felt coming back, I had 3 years left. I'd spoke to a few of the players as well. And I sort of knew a few of the players were going to maybe try and leave. And I just thought I'd been here 4 years, nearly 5. I was turning 25 that summer and just felt I wanted to change, that was all. So I spoke to Ollie and just said to him, look, I think it's maybe time for a change. I'd like to leave. I obviously understand his position. I've got 3 years left. I'm the top goal scorer for the last 3 years. He doesn't want me to go. And I just said, look, I just feel I've gone so far and could do with a change. So we had a conversation. I sort of explained that to him and then left the room. And then the next day I was blasted on the papers saying I'd requested a transfer request and wanted to leave. And that was sort of the start of it.